Okay, so this video is going to cover this flowchart number 1. I'm going to show you two different ways that we can create this. Okay, and I'm going to turn up the speakers, get a little bit louder. All right, so first let me show you where this is real quick. If we go into topics 1 and you go into the activity list, flowchart 4. So I'm going to create two different videos. I'm going to create this one first, and then I'm going to create this one second. Your homework for flowcharts is you'll create this one, and then you'll add to it with flowchart 4, and you'll turn in flowchart 4. But you're going to have to do 3 first, okay, before you can do 4. Okay. So when you're doing flowcharts, let's see here. Sorry, I have to move this around because of the movie making device. So I am going to use, let's see here, if I Google there's a couple free tools. There's Lucidchart and there's this Draw.io. I'm going to use Draw.io. I have accounts to both, but I'll authorize it to my Google account. I would highly suggest you get a Google account. I have a Cherry Creek one with my high school, but we're going to create a new diagram. Let's just do a blank one. Sure, yes. All right, so a couple things. You've got you should definitely be reading your part 1 flowchart and your part 2 flowcharts with if-else statements and loops. But part of this is we need to be on the same page on our shapes. Okay, now I've used different shapes before to represent different things, but for this class, we want to use these shapes, and I'm going to demonstrate with the best of my ability. The output I cannot find with this draw.io and with Lucidcharts. The output looks a little bit different. Just do your best. If you want to draw this out by hand, you can. I would suggest using Draw.io or Lucidcharts when you're working on these. But when you turn these in, I need to kind of have a good understanding that you're close. I get that this is what I'm going to use for the output, but it looks a little bit different. So I'll start with this, and like I said, I'm going to give you 2 examples of this program, and you can pick whatever way you would like. There's definitely an easier way and there's definitely a harder way, but giving you different examples is kind of nice in my mind. So it says, draw a flowchart to calculate how much a person pays for items for classes. Have the student enter the number of classes they are taking. For each class, the student is going to buy a notebook that costs $1.50. The student is also going to buy a package of pencils that costs $4. There is a tax of 10%. Output the total cost of buying items for the class. Trace the flow chart twice, once with 2 classes and once with 5 classes. All right, so when we're doing programming, we always want to kind of get our variables that are given to us first, because that's going to be at the top of our program. So it does say have the student enter the number of classes they are taking. I'm going to do these variables that they're giving me first. So I've got a notebook is $1.50. Sorry about that. And pencils are $4. And then, so you're going to want a notebook and pencils for each class. At least that's what I'm assuming. So again, you might interpret this a little bit different, which would affect the output of the program. Okay, so I'm not, as long as you're in the right ballpark, I'm not going to be too picky. Because I could see somebody going, well, I'm just going to buy pencils and that's good for all of my classes. I'm just going to assume we're going to buy a notebook and we're going to buy these packet of pencils for each class. Okay, that's kind of how I'm thinking about this, all right? But you might think about it differently. All right, so whenever we assign something, we're going to want to use the rectangle, okay? And then inside here, I'm going to say notebook, and this is just going to be set to $1.50. Okay, let's see here. And then we're going to have what? We're going to have pencils. Oops. Okay. Pencils. And that's going to be 4. And then we're going to have a tax, which is going to be 0.1. Okay. See if I can get in here. All right. And I can probably get this left aligned. Okay. Now, some of you might create a rectangle for each one of these. I'm just going to do it for all of them. Okay. And then it's going to ask me to enter in enter the number of classes you are taking. Okay, and again, what's nice here is that I can move these all around. I can grab the different shapes that I need. If you're going to write this with like a pencil and paper, you might have to erase a bunch of stuff, but with this you can just click and drag and move it around if you forget something. So let's go back here. Like I said, this looks a little bit different, okay? This was the closest object I could find that looked like close enough to the output, okay? And then we'll have input here, which we'll use as this one, okay? And so we're asking the user to enter, the number of classes, and so then the input will be num classes, okay? I'm trying to center everything and give it enough space, because what we're going to do here in a little bit, you can kind of click on the arrow and it will start connecting these things. So that's kind of cool. And this is the flow of each step, okay? And if you don't like that much space, and I don't really want to go off the page on this, so okay, so anyway, the next thing, we got to figure out the cost. So we'll say and you could do this all in one step, but I don't know. To me, it gets a little bit complicated. So the cost is going to be the number of classes, and we're going to multiply that by, and I am going to make this larger and thinner. There we go. It'll be a number of classes times the notebook times the pencils. Okay, so again, I'm assuming a notebook's $1.50 and pencils are $4, and so like if they took 3, so that'd be $5.50. So if they took 3 classes, it would be 3 times $5.50, which would be what, $16.50. Okay, now that's not the final cost because we always have to add in our taxes here. Okay, so then we want to do like a total cost, so I'll throw in this and I'll say total cost is going to be equal to, and then we'll say what, the cost, which we just got right here, and we will add in the tax. So we'll say, so if the cost was $16.50, we'll multiply that by the tax variable, which was assigned up here to 0.1. So that would give me what, $1.65. So $16.50 plus $1.65 is going to be our total cost. And then we will output this to the screen. Okay. And we'll just do something like this. We'll say total cost, and then we will do, we'll add the total cost to it. Okay. Okay, and then I should have copied that earlier, but when I do that, I'll say stop right here. You could say stop or end, it doesn't really matter. Anyway, you just click on the down arrows and it should, I don't want that. I want it to connect to, you might have to move it around to get it to be straight. That's not that big of a deal, Okay. Either way, this is the easiest way to do this and think about this, all right? Okay, you got your start, you got your variables, you ask the number of classes, you enter the number of classes, you figure out the cost of everything, and then you add the taxes to the cost to get the total cost, then you output the total cost and you stop, okay? Now, some of you might think about this in terms of a loop. So I'm going to copy this, and this would be the next way you could go about this. Okay, so I'm gonna copy this, and then I'm gonna do another copy and paste that there, and I'll do stop, and that's gonna go down here somewhere. Okay. All right, so a lot of it's going to be the same too as well. You're gonna get this. You're gonna copy this, paste that. Okay, it's going to give you, the same, pretty much same variables. You're going to have the number of classes. You'll ask that. Okay. Now, this is where it gets a little bit different. If you wanted to do this with a loop, what we'll do is we'll set up a counter and we'll set that to 0. Okay. Okay. And let's look at this too. So, this document is nice because it deciphers between a loop and an if-else type structure statement. Okay. I cannot find any of the flowchart diagramming tools that have these kind of like 2 diamonds to represent a loop and make it look different than just an if statement. So again, I said if you're using these online documents or sorry, these drawing tools, it might look different than what we're using in the class, but we should use a diamond here and make it a little bit bigger. And this would actually be like a while loop in here. So I would say while the counter is less than the num classes. Okay. And maybe it should be like a little bit smaller. That looks okay. Okay. And then in here, we're actually going to figure out our I'm going to paste this here. This is actually just going to be the same down here. So I'm going to finish this up a little bit. Okay, I'll move that down. Before I get into here, I'm gonna start filling this out. Okay. Connecting these. Man, I don't know why it wants to do that. It's like it's jumping. Ew. All right, so inside here is where I'm going to do my do something a little bit different here. So if the number of classes, sorry, if my count is less than my number of classes, then I am going to do the cost is equal to the cost plus the notebook plus the pencil. Let's see if I can view. I might need to zoom out a bit. Because I'm going to have to do, see if I can do this. Okay, so then I'll do another one here that says, okay, cool. It just added on, which is very nice. So this one's going to say count counter is equal to the counter plus 1. Now you're going to have to look up some stuff with how loops work, but scoot that over. Okay. All right, so what it's going to do, so for each time, cost is 0 at first, okay? So our pencils are full, our notebooks for pencils are $1.50, or sorry, our notebooks for pencils are, sorry, notebooks $1.50, pencils are 4, so that's $5.50. So now our cost is $5.50. And that's for the first class. So when count is 0, 0 is less than, let's say, 3 classes, right? And then we add 1 to count, count becomes 1. So counter's 0, we add 1 to becomes 1. And I should change that to counter. Okay. So is 1 less than 3? Yes, so then we take our $5.50 and then we add another $5.50 to it with our notebook and pencil. So our cost is 11 now. Then we take our counter, which was 1, and add 1 to it. It becomes 2. And so is 2 less than 3? Yes. So then we add another $5.50 to our 11 and it becomes $16.50. Count becomes 3. Is 3 less than 3? No. And then so then we move on, and so we take our cost, which was $16.50, and we multiply by the tax. So you can see how that works, but I need to do one last. And this one has been giving me issues. Maybe not. Let me see here. Ideally, it's going to draw an arrow from here up to, let's see here. So I kind of want to go, because when you do a while loop, you go back to the beginning. Okay, kind of have it. There we go, there. And now here, I'm just going to draw Ugh. Well, maybe I just delete that and draw another one. Again, sorry, this is kind of a big giant pain. Well, maybe that one will work just by itself. Either way, with this, you're gonna have to get on here and play with this a little bit because they didn't do a very good job with it. Okay, but you get the idea, right? Like, I mean, that's how a loop's gonna work. If this is true, then it's gonna run these assignments and then come back up and go back to the while loop. And as long as it's true, it's gonna keep running. And when it's false, it will be finished. Okay. So that's a pretty good idea of how to do the first one in two different ways, depending on how you're thinking about it. This one's obviously easier, but this works as well. So I'm gonna do one more example. I'll do this second one in a second video. This one's getting long in the tooth, but I'll do this next one, and then your job will be to do 3 and 4 for the homework. All right.